Okay, so this is what we're doing today. We're simplifying radicals, and that's basically what that video just showed.
The square root.
Yes and no, okay? We're not finding the actual answers, we're just simplifying the number, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, I would prefer to finish early rather than make this last a whole hour and 30 minutes. Okay, so what is a radical? So a radical is the square root, okay? A radical is the square root. And what we're doing is we're simplifying this. Inside the square root, the thing that is inside the square root is called the radicand, which I don't memorize these words, but. And the n, yes, but I don't memorize these words. I didn't remember that this was radicand. And what type of root this is, usually we're just doing square root, but the index would tell us what kind of root it is, okay? So for purposes of today, we're only doing the square root, and we usually don't put a 2 here. We just know that if it's just the square root symbol, that this is square root. But there's also cubic roots and things of that sort. But we are only working on the square root.
Does that say radicand?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Okay, so how do we simplify radicals? First, the thing that I always want to do is we need to know what a perfect square is, okay? We need to identify our perfect squares. Now, you learned this last year, but I know it's something that every year, like, well, what's a perfect square? So, and I've already done this year as well. So I'm just going to write out the perfect squares, and you tell me if you see the pattern.
It's plus,
1 times 1, or 2 times 2. It's all the numbers going down times down.
Yes, okay. So 1 times 1 would give me 1. So if I took the square root of 1, that would give me a perfect number, or a whole number rather, of 1. If I took the square root of 4, that would be 2. If I took the square root of 9, that would be 3. So forth and so on. So these are called perfect squares because when I square root them, they give me whole numbers and not rational numbers with multiple, or irrational numbers with multiple decimals. Okay. Now, for today's purposes, what I would do is write down all the perfect squares on the side of your paper. You don't have to show yourself taking the square root, but I would just write 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. I would write all these down to always just have a quick reference of what the perfect squares are. So just somewhere on the side of your paper, I would just write them in the margin or something. Bless you. Remember, square root of something is finding the number times itself that equals that number. So because 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. So once we identify what the perfect square is, we're trying to find which of these would be a factor in the radicand. So the largest of these, that would be a factor in the radicand. And we would factor that out, and we would find the square root of it. And we'll do plenty of examples, but this is fairly simple, I promise. Okay. May I move from the slide, or do we need to wait?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know that show? That's about like this little kid named Sheldon.
Sheldon?
Or whatever. Yeah. I wish I was that kid. Besides like dressing wise, I wish I was him, like smart.
You are smart, Noah.
Oh, I know.
Sit, okay.
We have to write down the number 2 and number 3. Like, second bullet point.
Ring, ding, dong.
I would at least write down the third one. How's it already 7:50?
Because we took a long time to talk.
Yeah, we did take it.
I thought you said 7:15. I was like, dang, we're doing really good on that.
No.
We started before school even
I
started.
know, like, geez, we're still ahead.
It's a few stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ready, can?
It's not a perfect square.
Index is in. Is in. Yeah, and ready, can is a.
Thank you now.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do an example. Okay. So first we ask ourselves, is 48 a perfect square? No. So again, I'm gonna list them out really quickly on the side here. For you, you should already have that list. And 48 is not on that list. Okay. Now, you can, if you can understand, hold on, I cannot talk and write these at the same time. Okay. 48 though is very close to 49, right? And the square root of 49 is 7. So I know that the square root of 48 is probably like 6.9 or something like that. I can kind of guess like what the answer might be. Okay, but we're gonna leave this as a radical. We just want to simplify the radical. So we know that the square root of 48 is not a perfect square. Okay, we got that established. Now we need to figure out some of the factors of 48. We want to figure out which of these perfect squares, listen, which of these perfect squares go into 48. We want to find the largest perfect square that goes into 48. Like divide it, like can go in like a factor of 48. 16. Now, how can you do that quickly? Well, I know for me, I'm like, okay, I know 36 and 25 don't go into 48. So I'm gonna start with 16. And when I do that, 48 divided by 16 is 3. So this is how we can do this. Watch and see. So I know that the two factors of 48 are 16 times 3. Again, I did this by doing 48 divided by our perfect square, seeing what the biggest perfect square, largest perfect square goes into 48. And when I say goes into, like it's divisible, like by 48, okay? So I know 16 times 3 equals 48. Now I'm just gonna split these up to have their own square root signs on each of them. So the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. I haven't done anything special yet. I just broke this down into its factors. And then I split them up. Well, what is the square root of 16? 4. And is the square root of 3 a whole number? No. So I'm just going to leave it as square root of 3. And this is my answer.
Is the 16 times 3, is that going into number 3 or is number 2?
Number 3.
Number 2?
Wait, hold on. Like this, like stepwise?
Yeah.
I would say number 3.
What?
Okay, and then this is my answer. This is the simplified form. 4 square root of 3.
That's really easy.
Okay, give me questions, please.
That's so easy.
No, it's really hard. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we figured out which perfect square goes into 48, the largest perfect square that goes into 48. Because some of you might have been like, well, 4 goes into 48. Why can't I use that? Right? So some of you are like, well, 4 times 12 is 48. Let me break it down. The square root of 4 times the square root of 12. Well, that's 2 times the square root of 12. But that's not the most simplified, because does any perfect square go into 12? No?
Oh,
Six.
Perfect square goes into 12?
No.
4. Okay, guys, these are the perfect squares. Y'all are saying numbers are perfect. Okay. So I know that 4 times 3 goes into 12. So I would have to keep breaking this down. So I have 2 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. And what's the square root of 4? 2. So 2 times 2 would give me 4 square root of 3. So if I choose a perfect square that isn't the largest one, I'm going to have to keep going and keep breaking it down. So that's why you find the largest perfect square. Let's try another one. Square root of 54. So do not say out loud, just everyone try to find the largest perfect square that goes into 54. Find the largest perfect square that goes into 54. Did y'all find the largest perfect square that goes into 54?
Yeah.
What is it? 9, yes. Some of you don't even have a calculator out or using your calculator on your iPad. Okay, don't wait for the answer. Got to do it yourself. So 9 times 6 will give me 54. So I'm going to break this apart. The square root of 9 times the square root of 6. And what is the square root of 9? 3. So my answer is 3 square root of 6. Of the whole year. Okay, is there anyone with confusion? No? Okay, let's try another one. I guess I've never changed it. I'll have to fix that. Thank you for noticing. Let's see if anyone's gonna catch this before y'all do the most. What, Jada?
I know it.
Is it gonna be?
Oh, it's
Perfect. It's a perfect square. So step 1, it says, is 81 a perfect square?
yes.
Yes, it is. It is a perfect square. What is the square root of 81? 9. That's my answer.
You just made me do all this work.
I said, let me see if y'all catch it.
No.
Liz, you heard me.
I said it first.
Oh.
Well, I found it first.
But
You said it's a perfect square, and I just said it.
yeah, but yes. Everyone was correct. Okay, guys, we're all winners.
It's one of the parents. She is. Like, no, like the participation award parent. We're all winners here, guys.
But I like that you identified it's a perfect square. That's what you said. It's a perfect square. So understanding that, always looking, wait, it's a perfect square first. Okay, yes or no, then you can move on from there. Okay, so understanding those steps is imperative. All right, let's try another example, number 1. Say what?
Oh, I know how to do this.
Wait a minute, Miss Patterson. You just got a little bit more spicy. What are you doing?
You don't do anything.
My dad.
You still break it down.
Yes. Now, hold on. What's step number 1?
It's 25 purpose.
Is 25 a perfect square? Yes. What is the square root of 25? 5. So I have 5 times 5. So the answer is 25. Okay, so if you see 5 is a coefficient in front of the square root symbol. So because this 5 is here, I have to remember to multiply it with whatever the square root of 25 was.
I keep writing example number
Okay, I'm gonna say it one more time. Yeah, you keep writing example number 1. Okay, so this says 5 times the square root of 25. So it's 5 times, well, the square root of 25 is 5, so ultimately it's still 5 times 5. So the answer is 25. So if it has a coefficient, you need to multiply that to the simplified radical. So if it has a coefficient, you need to multiply that to the simplified radical. If it has a coefficient, you need to multiply that to the simplified radical.
Okay. Oh, there's another step. No. Adding steps.
If it has a coefficient, you need to multiply that to the simplified radical. Times may be darkest. Yeah, I was just making sure everyone's got what they need to get.
Yeah, Alexa.
Today it feels easy.
So what's the, Alexa, what is
I
the
can think like
simplified
three
radical
arrows.
again?
What we were doing back here. So like, let's say there was a well, you're about to see an example, okay? Okay, let's look at this one, 2 square root of 48. So we already did the square root of 48 earlier, okay? So just to go back, 2 square root of 48.
Oh, 48
Hold on, guys, I
is
got it.
on.
48 is like 6.
It's 3.
3 and 16, right? 16 times 3. 16 was the largest perfect square to go into 48. So what? I think it's 16 times 3.
16 times 3? Yeah, it is.
Yes, okay. So watch what I'm about to do. So I'm about to break this down. So 2 times the square root of 48 with we know that the two factors were 16 times 3. So then I'm going to break it down some more. 2 times the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. Well, what was the square root of 16? 4. So this breaks down in 2 times 4 times the square root of 3. And what's 2 times 4?
8.
8. So the answer is 8 square root of 3. Okay, so that's what I meant by simplify your radical and then multiply it by the coefficient.
The one who did that was 25, right?
Yes. All right, I really need questions because I'm done.
Okay.
OMG, it's 8:04. That took us like 10 minutes.
How'd you do
That's my
that?
question.
Mm,
Did you look up
I mean, I don't think I have a
Right.
question.
okay, it's not gonna get spicier than this. This is literally
Nice.
the
So,
spiciest.
yeah, that question.
I hope you're not tricking us.
I'm really
I
not.
feel like
But no, I
you're
just,
gonna be like, all right.
this is the hardest it's gonna get. So if you do not understand this, I need you to speak up.
No. So everybody stay silent.
Okay.
No.
What do you mean? What do you
I
mean?
just don't want to do work.
What do you mean?
Friday.
I don't care what day it is.
You know you care.
So if somebody died, you want to care.
What? How do we get all
These practice problems, but you really like the number 5.
right?
Honestly,
No.
she's up to 5, 2, and
Okay, so what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna call someone's name.
No.
They're gonna explain it to the class.
Girl.
So I choose, first person I choose is, go ahead, Alexa. So for square root of 75, let me write down the perfect squares real quick. Times may be darkest, but your love is greater.
You okay, man?
You know what? I'm wonderful.
Imagine being wonderful.
Okay.
Are you sure?
All right,
Can you do a
Alexa.
harder one?
No, you can do this one. All right, Alexa, what is the perfect square, the highest, what is the greatest perfect square that goes into 75?
25.
All right, keep
times
going.
three.
All right, keep going.
And then you put them into their two individual square roots. And then the perfect square of 25 times 5, 5 times square root.
Whoop, whoop, you did it. Alexa, you go, girl.
The silence is really loud.
Uh.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yes,
So, it say like 80. Would you be able to fit it into 81, or would you have to choose a number smaller than that
smaller, so it has to divide into 80.
to get to it?
Yes.
How do we, how do we put it in a calculator?
So I would like, for me, I do, okay, well, 80 divided by 64. 80, that's not a whole number. 80 divided by 36. Okay, that's not a whole number. 80 divided by 5. So you're trying to find two whole numbers that multiply together to get me 80. One of the numbers has to be a perfect square. So, okay, 80 divided by 16. Oh, 16 and 5. So that's what I do. I just divide it. I keep dividing it until I find two whole numbers that multiply together. What?
What's the square root of 10?
Yeah, I would have as much example as possible. So since I did the work for this one, I'm gonna keep going. So yes, it's not a whole number. All right, so the square root of 80, if I break it down, that is 16 times 5. 16 is the largest perfect square that goes into 80. So the square root of 16 times the square root of 5, and the square root of 16 is 4, so the answer is 4 square root of 5.
Oh my God. My square root, my little square root thingamabobbers are perfection.
Perfect.
I used to think like,
I literally do like a squiggle and
Okay, next person I choose is Jada.
Jake.
oh, I get it, guys. It's okay.
Go!
I'm like, 125.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see. What's the line capital?
And then like
Wait.
16 times 7.
Sorry, this is my problem. Thank you. What?
And for me, like when I look at these problems, if I see there's like it's a 5 or a 0 at the end, like it's something that's divisible by, like I always start with just 25. Like I'm like, okay, let me divide this by 25 real quick.
Google.
The one with 5.
What?
The 5 and 7. 5 and 25.
All right.
You put it in the separate algebra.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then you multiply. Yeah, you multiply them. Yeah. Oh,
Find
you
the
find
square root of 25.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is 5.
Okay. So square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of 5 is not a whole number. It's not a perfect square, so we just leave it under the radical.
Yeah.
So there's my
I have
answer.
another question.
Yes.
So, obviously, Jada multiplied instead of like dividing. Did you divide it? Like for the first step, did she divide it?
I don't know. How did you find your two factors?
5 divided by 25.
Okay. All right. I choose Jaden. Square root of 45.
Okay, just not me again.
Mhm.
25.
Excuse me, but
45.
You got it, Jaden. Leon, the sign of like the second part, it always is either 3 or 5.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have been using, like when I made this, I must have been using the same numbers over and over again.
8 times 5. Or 9 times 5.
So would you divide like to find your vectors? Would you divide like the perfect square?
Yes, I only use the perfect squares.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
9 times 5.
Yeah, okay. 9, so it's 9 and it's 5.
9 and 5. Uh-huh.
What? They are wrong.
After this one.
9 times 5.
Uh-huh.
Put them in their separate square roots.
Okay.
So it's gonna be 9, and then times that 9 squared. Wait, 9 squared.
Square root of 9.
Square root of 9 is 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be 3 times the square root of 5.
Yes, I do not know why I kept using the number 5. It's not going to be like that all the time. Some reason I just kept doing it over and over again. All right, Noah, it's your turn.
So, could I use 10 times 2 or 5 times 4?
So, okay, let me ask this. 10 times 2, is 10 or 2 a perfect square? No, so you can't use that.
Okay, so I can just use that 5 times 4?
Yes.
Okay, so you put 5 times 4, and you put them in the little curly thing. And then 2 5. Oh, 4. Oh, 5.
So which one of these numbers is a perfect square? 4. So that's the only one that I can square root. So what's the square root of 4? 2. So it'd be 2 square root of 5.
Oh, so you're allowed to switch it.
Yeah, you can, because it's just multiplying, so you can just move them back and forth. All right. Sophia, you ready? I'm sorry?
2 times
2
20.
times the square root of 28.
The square root of it'd be 9 times 4 times 7.
Yes, all right. So the factors of 28 are 4 and 7. Okay.
Four times square root of 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 times 2 times square root of 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then 4 square root of 7.
Perfect. Awesome. You go, Sophia. First person to do the
Did we really
hard
wanna
one.
do all that though?
Yeah.
So, I guess.
Just the second.
I mean, I
Like,
get-
it stayed the same.
No, I wouldn't say the second number, but it's always the number that's not a perfect square. So 4 is the perfect square, but 7 is not. So I know I'm taking the square root of 4, but 7 is just going to stay under the radical because it's not a perfect square.
Okay, so the non-perfect square.
Yes. Okay. Who wants to take, who hasn't gone? Who wants to take this next one?
Robert hasn't gone.
I know, I'm asking who wants to do it.
Right. She said, who was
Did
it?
it shucks.
Mm,
I'm trying to, hold on, I'm trying to find it before you.
okay.
Oh!
Oh, I know.
Love is greater.
Who was it?
For this one, would you divide the line?
Can I do
Or
it,
would
Miss?
you multiply
The
them?
25 and
You still, so always start with dividing
I know, Robert,
the
that's
what's
not
in the
what I'm saying.
radical, finding that which perfect square goes into it.
I chose 100.
Huh?
Is that?
Okay, so does 144 perfectly go into 150?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh,
Mhm.
I thought you said never mind.
So okay, so you like let me show you exactly what I say when I'm doing. Okay. So let me go to Desmos real quick. So what I do, and this is for everyone who like especially for the recording if you're not understanding. So it was 150, right? So I would take 150 and start dividing it by the perfect squares. Okay, I know 150 divided by 144 would give me a decimal, so that's not it. Divide by 121, that's not it. Divide by 100, that's not it. And you can keep going, but you should be able to start seeing a pattern of, okay, 150, I know 25 goes into 150, so let me do that one. Okay, and so that would give me 25 and 6. Not the exact same thing. All right, so who's going, Robert or Babe? Okay,
Oh, man.
okay, go ahead, Robert.
Okay, so 150, 25 times 6.
Uh-huh.
And then times 3. Would it be 3 times square root 25?
Mm-hmm.
Times square root 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then 25 is 5 goes into 20.
Okay, so the square root of 25 is
5.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so, right, yeah, 3 times 5. And then square root 6
Mm-hmm.
equals 15 square root 6.
Perfect. There you go. Awesome. Good job, Robert. All right, baby, ready? Or no? Rodolfo? Rodolfo?
I can try. If you want me to try, I can.
I mean, if you don't want to, I'm not gonna force you.
I won't mind, but I want to try, but I don't want to like
Be wrong.
I don't want to be wrong as well.
I look dumb every day.
I mean,
Wow.
if that's your preference.
Rodolfo, did you fall asleep? Rodolfo.
Did he?
He's sleeping.
I mean, that's your preference.
All right, go, Jada.
I can do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you want to do it? No. Do it. No, do it.
I mean, I already did one.
Go ahead, babe.
Okay, hold on, babe.
Okay.
It's all good.
Shut up.
Oh, I was gonna laugh. 72.
Oh my god, why is it not?
It's just 6. Honestly. You did that. I know it's. Oh, it's 36.
Mando.
So who's doing this?
Oh, it's 2. Okay.
No.
Okay, so you divided 2, get a perfect square, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah.
2 and what? So
I tried it.
so 72. I know it's not divisible by 64. I know it's not divisible by 49. Did you try 36? Okay, so it's 36 and what? Okay, so it'll be 2 times the square root of 36 times 2.
And then, oh, sorry. 2 times, the 3, and times the square root of 2 equals, 2 times 3, the square root of 2.
What are you saying? 3 or are you saying 36?
Oh, thank you. Crazy phrase. That's 72. Oh, so 2 times the square root of, wait, I'm confused now.
So what is the square root of 36?
Oh,
The square.
sorry, guys, I got it. 6.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, don't come for me.
You're good. You're
I
good.
won't go for you.
So then times the square root of 2, and I'll leave the 2 under the square root symbol because it's not a perfect square.
Yeah. And then it's 12.
Perfect. So the answer would be 12 square root of 2. Awesome. Good job, babe.
Why did I put 6?
Go.
Oh
All right.
my God.
I'll do the last one. Okay, go. Did you already do it?
Oh my gosh, shut up.
Mm.
Those are yours to do.
Right?
Okay.
I make it right, 12 times 9, well, 5, square root. 12 times
So 9 is not the largest one. So find another one. And the reason I know that is because 4 goes into 12, and then so another perfect square goes into that other factor. So I know that can't be the largest one. So keep dividing.
36 times 3,
Perfect. Uh-huh.
and you write the 2 of 5, and then square root of 36 times the square root of 3,
Uh-huh.
and then 5 times 6,
Uh-huh.
and then 6 times 5 is 30.
Perfect. Awesome. Good job, Noah. Yay. All right. So,